Welcome back. In this video, we'll get our virus killer moving, and then we'll take a look at maybe picking up this object, our virus. Okay, so let's go back to our script. So last video, we had got the controls working, but we had not caused the virus to move, or the virus killer to move. So we need to do that now. And it's pretty straightforward here. What we'll do is, well, first maybe what I should do here is comment out the debug log here. We don't need that anymore, but it might come in handy later on. We could delete it, or the two / comment it out so that the code doesn't run. Next, what we're going to do here is we're going to access that RB2D, the rigid body, and we are going to add a force to it. So we're going to basically push it. And how we're going to push it is with that movement. So remember, a vector, if you've taken Science 10, I believe, or Physics 11, a vector is basically has a magnitude and a direction. So by pushing this, by pushing the keys, we've determined a direction, and we saw that there's a value attached to it, a magnitude. So we'll save this, head back to Unity, and see what happens here. Now our camera's fixed, so we don't have too much room to play. But let's just see if we're moving. So I hit play here. And there we go. So I'm using my left and right keys, and I'm slowly moving around. Okay, now I can hit here. It does hit, so the collisions are working, right? Because we put those colliders. It's rotating a bit. Now, you might like the rotation, right? And you can see as I keep pushing it, sort of rotating around here. It's not a bad effect. But let me just show you what you could do. Let me just hide my console here. If you go back to your virus killer and you look under your rigid body, there are constraints. There's a little drop down here. If you click on that, you could freeze the position or you could freeze the rotation. So Z is going directly into it. It's spinning around the Z axis. You could lock that. And now, if you hit play here, it will not rotate when it hits here. So if I go again, here we are. Right. So you notice that there's no rotation this time. Up to you what you think works better. I'm going to leave it with the no rotation on. What we'll do next is try to get this virus picked up, right? It's the COVID cleaner. We're trying to destroy our COVID virus here. So what we'll do is we will go to our COVID virus. We're going to make two changes. One is we are actually going to tag it. And tagging is going to be useful because we're going to have a lot of this virus around. And if I create a new one, what you'll notice is that it will actually sort of I don't say disappear, but you'll get new ones that are like COVID-1, COVID-2, COVID-3, so on. We can't have game objects with the same name. So that creates a problem if you're trying to say, oh, kill the virus or make the virus disappear if it has this name. It doesn't work that way. But what we can do is we can tag them with a tag that's common to all our virus particles. So I'm going to come under here as tag, click on that. There's not one that's called virus or anything that's sort of what we'd want. So I'm going to add a tag. And it brings up this sort of tags and layers. Tag list is empty. Put a little plus there. New tag. And what I'm going to do here is call it virus. And I'm going to capitalize it just to stay consistent. That's done. Now, unfortunately, if I go back to here, you'll notice it's still untagged. So I just have to go back and tag it. So now it's tagged virus. Okay, haven't done anything yet. Go back to this. Now notice in the circle collider, we had, we put it on there and we saw that it collided. Well, we don't want sort of the, it from bouncing off of it. We basically want it to sort of kind of go through it and pick it up as it goes. So we are going to change this right here where it says is trigger. Think of trigger like a sensor. And I'll talk about more of that in class, but we want to turn that on. Just to show you the difference here, when I hit play, as I move through, rather than bouncing off of it, it passes through, okay? Now you might sort of be a little bit concerned and say, ooh, it's passing through here. That doesn't look very good. It doesn't, but we're going to do some code so that when it passes through, it detects it. Now that's pretty straightforward to do. We're going to go into our code, back to Visual Studio here, and we're going to come down under the fixed update and create a new function. And Visual Studio is really useful here. All I have to do is start typing on trigger enter. So trigger, there we are, on trigger enter, and make sure it's the 2D version, and everything gets put in there. Life is pretty easy. So what is happening is this function gets called when there is a collision. And so we're going to put a little bit of code here to detect the collision. So we don't want it to do it to everything, so we only want it to do it if this object that it collides with has a tag. So we're going to put a conditional in here. So an if statement, if the collision, collision, because that's the name of the object that you hit. So the collision.gameObject, so it has to be the collision game object dot compare tag is called the virus. And I'd use mine to capital there, and being consistent helps. What we're going to do is do something, right? So that object, if it's tagged virus, we are going to get that collision game object. Make sure it's small case there. We're going to make it disappear, and we're going to use the set active, and I'll show you this in a second. We're going to set that to false. And that should work, okay? So I'm going to save that. Go back to Unity. And once that's finished, hit play here. Now, one thing that I'm doing here is turning set active to false. Set active is actually this little box right here. So this is the set active tag up on the inspector. So if I turn it on, which it is, we can see the virus. If I click it, it will disappear. Now it's still in the game, but it's just not active anymore. So what we're doing with the code is that when it detects sort of that triggering, right, it runs that code, it is going to turn this off. And we'll see it right here. So I'm going to go back into my game, move the object, and as it gets close, now it disappears. So like I said, it's turned this off. Right. Now one thing you might notice is this guy moves a bit slow. Okay. Now it's a little bit ponderous. So what I'm going to do is fix that a little bit, go back to the code, and we're going to create like a sort of a speed setting here. So I'm going to come up again here. I'm also going to use that serialized field. Serialized field. And whoops. And I'm going to create a, probably an integer, and I'm going to call it speed. It's not really the speed, it's more like the acceleration force is multiplying the force, but that's for all intents and purposes, it's going to, sort of improve the speed here. And so what we're going to do is take this movement and simply multiply it. So make sure you're using the asterisk as your multiply by that speed. Okay. Now I'm going to save that. Go back into Unity. And what you should notice on our virus killer here is that we now have a speed setting, and it's set to 0. If I hit play here at the moment, it will feel like I've broken my game. Okay, so when I try to play it, it's not moving, and that's because it's multiplying that movement by 0. So whatever it was, 1 or -1, now it's 0 value. So I'm just going to go back in here. You can play around with the number. I'm going to set it to 10. Hit play again. And now you can see I'm moving a lot quicker. Okay, good. Perfect. Not sure where we're getting that warning there, but we're okay, I think. I think it's just sort of a warning there, but we've set it. We're okay. Good. Now, one thing you'll notice, first off, I'm moving off the screen, okay, and out of the camera. Those are two things that we'll look at in the next video.